So, Michael, what do you think some of the most important things are for mums when they're dealing with their sons being bullied?
Yeah, there's a lot to remember, and you're going to get a lot out of these videos. And the number one thing, mums, for you to know is that your son he's not a girl, he's a boy. He's going to process things like boys process things. You know, there's going to be times where he's saying or doing things that make no sense to you as a mum, but he's a boy, he's not a girl. He deals with his emotions differently to how you did when you were his age. So let's treat him like a boy. Let's not expect him to be like you were when you were his age. If that makes sense.
So, Michael, for dads especially, it's a really difficult thing, I think, to see their sons become so upset with a problem like bullying. So what is some of your advice for fathers dealing with that situation?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because especially some of the dads watching this, you grew up in a culture where boys don't cry, men don't cry. And you know what? Some of you guys, your sons are a bit broken inside. They're struggling a bit, and they're going to be a bit emotional. And if we try to say to them, don't cry, we're just shutting them down. And we're going to wonder why they won't talk to us, and we're going to wonder why they don't deal with things. So number one is to expect our sons to have a bit of emotion, to get a bit angry, get a bit cheesed off, to withdraw into his shell. I guess that's just normal.
And to understand that that's an acceptable way to deal with things.
It is, because this generation of kids is not like your generation of kids, and we've got to work with the culture, not against it.
Okay, Michael, so I've noticed that a lot of fathers tend to minimise their son's pain and they say that they're making a big deal out of nothing. So how can we move forward from there?
Yeah, and that minimising comes from a good motive. It's like those dads are trying to say, come on, let's move forward. But when we just say to our sons, oh, you'll be right, or get over it, or it happened to me when I was your age, or it happens to everyone, all we do is that we drive our sons from us, and then they feel like they can't be real. So we want to let our sons know that what they're going through is painful, but it's temporary. Okay, so we're not saying the pain doesn't matter. It does matter, but it's temporary. We want our kids looking forward. So really it's just that we don't want to drive them away by not caring. We do care, but we want them to know that we view this as a temporary thing. It's just a speed bump. They'll get through it and they'll be stronger for it.
Okay, Michael. So for a lot of sons, I think, and this might be a little bit controversial, but the father is such an important relationship for a young boy, perhaps even more so than the mum, particularly when dealing with something emotional and powerful like bullying. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Dads or stepdads, or whatever your role is, grandfathers, what you say to your son here is more important to him than what mum says. And that's because your son's going to receive from you those words of advice or encouragement more than they're going to receive what mum said. It would be different if he was 5 years old, but he's not. He's older. So I think it's just important to remember that your affirmation of your son is so important right now. He doesn't need to hear 12 ways that he can improve himself. He needs to hear that you've got his back, that you know what he's going through and you care, and you believe he's going to make it through. You believe he's got what it takes, because the weight of those words coming from a dad just impacts a son, or seemingly so much more than it does for a mum.
So, Michael, one of the dangers with dealing with having a son who's being bullied is that the parents start to feel like they're failures themselves, and if perhaps that they were better parents, then something like this wouldn't have happened. Is there a response you have for parents who are feeling that way?
Yeah, just I know that it's tough. I mean, I'm a dad. I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I used to have a foster daughter who was a teenager, and it's like every time they succeed, you give them credit for their success. And every time they struggle, you feel like, oh, I let the team down, it's somehow my fault. But, we're no more responsible for their struggles than we are for their successes. They're doing their own path. But just to remember that if you think that you're doing it tough, if you think that you've let the team down, if you think that you've failed your child, then you're just like every other good parent I've ever met. And I think in my whole life I've only met 1 or 2 parents who didn't think that they were doing a bad job, so what can you say?
Yeah. I mean, there are steps that you can take. If you do feel responsible, then there's positive ways that you can channel that energy.
Absolutely. Like the worst thing you can do is be passive and do nothing. If you're feeling a bit like, we've let the team down a bit, use that to inspire you to take action. Don't use that to inspire you to be sort of self-absorbed and feeling bad about yourself. That's not going to get a result.
Absolutely.